Hello, all. Welcome back to Not Just Lessons from Our Animals. I'm Emma. I am an animal communicator, healer, and teacher. I am a guide for humans back to their authentic self. I am a messenger for Mama G and a conduit for the divine. And today I am getting ready to go to the barn, which feels like maybe a very potent time to have this conversation. So, what's been coming through for a while that I've been wanting to kind of do an episode on and just waiting for the time, I think it's the time, is about uh what I feel like is one of the most important things that we can do for our animals and ourselves, but definitely our animals. And that is learning to listen and trust ourselves. So listen to our intuition, and we can talk about that in so many different ways and trust what's coming in. And I say that, I just have to move this, like light is a little bit wild. And I say that because we live in such a time and a society, at least here in the Western, well, I was going to say Western states, but the United States, is really more it is my, current society in which I live in, is we're surrounded by so many different people that can sometimes have very fixed beliefs or like very strong beliefs or opinions or judgments or knowings about things that can be then pushed upon us to then as an animal guardian to then do those things without much pushback or any pushback at all. So I'm talking about, you know, from a dog perspective, if you're watching this, you can see Ranger sleeping in the background. From a dog perspective, right? Vaccines. I guess like maybe any animal perspective, vaccines, right? It's like, well, no, you have to get them all the time. Yeah, and maybe it's, all the time's dramatic, but and I don't know what the like normal schedule is, but yearly or every 3 years, it's like usually it's one or something around those lines, and they need so many of them, right? I remember, gosh, Rangers taught me so much back when I first got him and went to the vet, and I'm like, okay, like whatever we need, I want to protect him to the best of my ability. So like, what do we need and load him up was like literally the whole thing. And he got all of them. He got all of them. And then I would be like, okay, like what are the more like what else? Like what else can I do to protect him, right? Because that was my mindset was how can I protect him? And this was what I was shown and told to protect him was through all these different vaccines and flea and tick meds and heartworm meds. And he was the one that really led me down this whole path of learning, oh, actually, most dogs, once they get their initial vaccines, tend to have sufficient antibodies for up to 7+ years. And they don't need to be revaccinated, but in between then because they already have what they need to protect themselves. They don't need it, they don't need extra. And then learning about flea and tick meds and learning about heartworm meds. And I was like, oh my gosh, do we really need all these things? Are they actually helping and protecting him, or are they actually causing harm? And as I have gone down this path of self-discovery and learning about myself and understanding who I was or who I am and understanding what's been conditioning, what's been limiting beliefs, like what things have I believed because that's what I was told and so that's or like that's how it's always been, so that's how it is. And like knowing my animals, right? So like having a better relationship with my animals, understanding the framework in which we are living in, right? So, going down the path of, wait, tell me more about all of these different things about vaccines and antibodies and food and like all sorts of things. Like he was my catalyst for so much for animal nutrition, but also, so much crosses over to human nutrition as well. Maybe not like nutrition, like food wise necessarily, but talking about vaccines and talking about different meds and how it can disrupt the microbiome and where immunity comes from, like all these different things. And so, but part of that is I was led to that path, right? My intuition led me to that path. I had a desire to learn more. I I was fueled. I had a passion to be led to all these different people and different resources. And I mean, I have multiple books at this point. I have been parts of different groups. I've followed different people. And I now get to come to my own understanding and my own choices that we get to make together, Ranger and I, for his health. And this can be very disruptive. I have seen in my own experience with vets who maybe aren't used to pushback. They're used to the version of me that's like, do all the things, right? I want to protect him. So like you tell me and like let's do all the things possible so that he's protected, right? Instead of me, the version of me now that says, okay, but why does he need that? Like you're saying he needs XYZ, so tell me why. Like I want to understand why we're doing something and how it's going to affect his body so that I can then do whatever I need to do if we decide that, yes, we're moving forward with it to then support his body to then heal afterwards, right? Because there's not a lot of talk about that, right? I think many people at this point know antibiotics, regardless of the species, if you're a human, if you're a dog, if you're a horse, if you're a cat, it doesn't matter. Antibiotics is going to disrupt in a very big way your microbiome across the board, right? That's just like a known thing. And so we have to know, right? And there's not a lot of talk, at least that I've seen from vets who have given me antibiotics for different species of animals that I have that says, okay, once they're through this round of antibiotics, or as we're going through this round of antibiotics, let's also pair it with something that's going to support the gut, that's going to support the microbiome so that we can help replenish what we're destroying, kind of, right? Because it's not to say antibiotics aren't good, right? They serve a purpose. I do have pushback and I have pushback with prescribing just in case. Like, well, just in case they might need it, we might as well. And it's like, ooh, that's like a really big thing that we are disturbing the immune system, right? The gut, which is where the immune system, like 90% of it lives, by doing this thing very laissez-faire, just, maybe. They might need it. So like, let's just do it and not also support the gut. So I've gotten a little off track, but these are all kind of examples for why I feel it's so important. And one of the most important things we can do is to learn about ourselves, learn to trust ourselves, learn to communicate in whatever way that we do it, because it doesn't have to look the same and it's not going to look the same as someone else, but communicate, connect with our animals because we know them best, right? We spend the most time with them. We are the ones that can say they seem off, even though they're acting quote unquote normal, right? We are their guardians, we are their stewards, we are the caretakers, we are the parents, whatever word you want to use. And it's our job, right? It's our job to know them the best and then to advocate and protect them in at the best way possible. So I talked about how my intuition led me down the whole path of health and whatnot with Ranger, with dogs mostly in general. I have and have not been led down that path for horses. In some ways I have, in some ways I haven't. There's some things that I pull, there's some things that I've learned nutritionally along the way. And now I'm at a point where somebody can suggest something, whether it's a vet, whether it's another person, and I can feel into that choice, that decision. I can feel into it from my perspective of how does that feel to go down that path. Does that feel good? Does that not feel good? Like, how do I feel about it? Then I might float it within the energy field of my animal, right? So maybe Ranger or any of the other animals. I keep using Ranger because he's in the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. Um, and there's lots of ways you can do that, right? You could do it through muscle testing. You could do it through a pendulum. You could do it through dowsing rods. You could do it through, um, meditation. You could do it through so many different ways, right? This is part of the teaching part of animal communication. Um, and I can see my cat outside. And right now I'm gonna float this thing into their energy field and see how it feels for them. Does this feel like something that is going to be supportive or going to be detrimental or not have really any effect at all, right? And then I'm going to take both of those kind of feelings, right? Outcomes or whatever we want to look at it and say, okay, how do I want to move forward? Is this something I want to move forward with or not? Knowing we can change our mind at any time, right? Just because it might be a no right now, it could be a yes later. Or just because it's a yes right now, it might turn out to be a no in a couple of days, right? It's just that they need this thing for a couple of days and then you can stop. Um, but this is the thing, like, and I've seen it happen through friends and clients who have said, yeah, they said to do this thing. It didn't feel quite right. So we did this other thing instead, and it changed everything, right? But this is where you have to learn to trust yourself and to take personal responsibility too, right? And that was the big journey for me was the whole personal responsibility because whether you want to look at it from a projector standpoint or an Aries standpoint, but like love external validation, right? And then love to be right and loathe being wrong and love being able to say, well, it was their decision and therefore it's their fault that XYZ is happening or isn't happening or whatever, right? And instead of saying, hold on, like this is our choice, right? The animal and me, we make this choice together. Nobody else gets to make the choice for us. And we then get to take responsibility for whatever happens, right? We're taking this as a partnership and a collaboration between me and the animal. And through that, we get to decide because we together know what's best, right? Yes, I'm not saying vets don't have like all of the knowledge and all of the things, and they don't know you or your animal the same way that you know you and your animal, right? Or that your animal knows you and themselves. And so, yes, you take what they have to say and you say, okay, how does this feel? What do we want to do next? What's the next course of action that we want to go down? And how does that look? For example, for Ranger, I think it's 4 years ago, he had a massive flare up in his elbow dysplasia, which was diagnosed when he was 2 and 3 in both of his elbows. And 4 years ago, he would have been 8. And like to the point where I had to carry him off and on, like out of the forest because it happened in the forest and he could hardly walk. But it wasn't as bad of a flare up as the one he just recently had. Anyway, and we went to the vet and they said, because I thought he like tore something because he wasn't getting better, very quickly. And we went to the vet and they said, it's a flare up and it's his elbow dysplasia and it's pretty significant. And we suggest surgery. So we would suggest referring you out to this, specialist that can potentially do the surgery. And I said, okay, cool. Um, give me the information. I need to feel into it, right? Like, hello, human design. I'm emotional authority. That's a big decision. I for sure need to go through my emotional wave to see how I'm going to feel on the other side of it. And then when I get to my neutral place, I'm going to like float it into his energy field and say, how does he feel about it? Or I probably had like a whole actual conversation with him, but like, how does a whole surgery sound to him? Like, how does that feel? Doing the surgery and then having to do rehab and having to, be, really confined and do all these different things, right? That didn't feel good to him. And it didn't really feel good to me. I didn't love the idea of putting him under like significant anesthesia at 8. And there was just something about rehab and everything that just like didn't feel that good. And I think it was going to be like 5 grand for the surgery. And then I don't think that was for rehab. That was just the surgery. And I said, okay, okay. And then these other things were coming into my life at the same time, or coming back into my life at the same time. One of them being PEMF. And ultimately, without you having to go down this whole path and story with me, ultimately, I chose to do PEMF. I chose to purchase a machine, which was more than the surgery, and not a super easy purchase for me at the time, financially. And I knew that for me, that was going to serve us way more than the surgery. I didn't know why. I didn't need to know why logically. I just needed to know what felt like the most right thing for us in that position. And then, I also, uh, then I went into rationalize, right? So there's the landing of the, okay, this is the thing. And then you can go in and rationalize, if that's your thing. And for me, it was back then. And, I rationalized it as like, okay, well, it's going to last longer than just like a one-time thing. And I can use it for me. I can use it for him. I can use, like, everybody can use it. And so it became, it's a part of our family now. I'm pointing, if you're watching, I'm pointing over here because it's on the ground here because we use it every night. He uses it. Well, I guess I started to. He uses it every night. And so that is something too, right? I was told, do this thing. And I said, okay, cool. Thank you for your opinion. I'm actually going to do something else. And it serves us so much more. Right. And I have so many examples of this, especially more and more now. And I really appreciate my horse vet because he's really open to my whole like intuitive way of moving through the world. Right. And so I get to say, well, this is what we're doing now. And this is literally what happened the last time I saw him. It hasn't landed for me yet of like what I want to do next. And we were talking about like supplements and vitamins and different things. And I said, okay, well, we're doing this right now. And I'm not sure. I feel like we're coming to a place where we're gonna like switch it up. I just like don't know what that looks like yet. And he's like, okay, go. Um, but right, like it comes back to us. It's our job to be the personal responsible one. I'm not saying you need to go out and learn as much as a vet knows. No, you don't need to. However, if you allow yourself to learn about yourself, to trust yourself, to learn about your animals, to connect with your animals, to be able to trust what they're telling you is true, then you can start to move in the world in a little bit of a different way that might feel a lot lighter and feel more, I mean, whole is the word that comes to like whole and grounded and in partnership, right? You're not outsourcing decisions for them anymore. They're now a part of the process. And that gets to be for everything, right? Which can sometimes be a drag, I guess, right? Sometimes when you're like, maybe more specifically for horses when you're only out with them a couple times a week or a certain time of day. And you're like, okay, this is the time that we like, go for a walk or we go for a ride. And they're like, but I actually would rather take a nap right now. I would have rather gone for a ride earlier. And so can you allow that to be what's real, right? Can you allow that to be the truth right now and not go for the walk or for the ride? And sometimes we say no, and we're going to do it anyway, right? And so this is where it's a different way of moving and living in the world with ourselves and with our animals. And it's no longer putting all of the decision making power into someone else's hands. Just because you're paying somebody doesn't mean you have to take all of their advice, right? Whether it's a vet, whether it's an influencer, whether it's a nutritionist, whether it's a trainer, you get to set the boundaries for yourself and for your animals, right? Which is also important to like say up front if you know what those are already so that you can find the right fit for you and your animal. And you don't have to go down the whole thing of like, oh gosh, this like, you know, this didn't work out because you did all the opposite things of like what I wanted, but I didn't tell you. And so I can't be upset. I can only be upset with myself because I didn't set the expectations ahead of time. I didn't set out the full picture for you to then be able to say yes or no, that you can support this or not, right? So, um, there's just, yeah, it's a very different way of moving, and it takes a lot of trust and it takes a lot of practice, right? And there's nothing to say you can't do what they're telling you to do. There's just so many people out there telling you to use this product and do this thing and all of these, but they aren't talking specifically to your animal because unless they're actually like you're talking to them about your animal, right? It's a very blanket statement that's being put out there, and it's up to you to feel into if that's right for me or not, right? The creator for any product or an influencer or spokesperson for any product is going to tell you it's the best product, right? Like that's their whole job, is to say, well, this is the best thing out there for XYZ reasons, right? And those reasons can be true, and they can also be false for your animal, right? Or for you. And so the more you can get in tune with yourself, the more you can get in tune with your animal, the easier it's going to be to not get swept up in different advertisements or marketing or stories that say, well, you know, I use this product and now my dog can walk. And it's like, well, I could give you so many different other experiences where a dog started to walk, right? And so there's there's not one, I guess this comes full circle to like my whole outlook on life. There's not one way. There's your way, right? There's what's right for you, there's what's right for your animal, which one thing that's right for your animal might not be right for your other animal. That's the same species, right? And so it's understanding, okay, who are all these beings in my life and how do I support them to the best of my ability, right? What does that look like? And how can we get there in the best possible way that can feel the most uplifting for all of us and supportive for all of us, right? And it might be the same nutrition for everyone across the board, or it might look different for each one. It's you don't know. I mean, you might know for your animals. I mean, I know for my animals. Um, although I will say this, I have such a fairness, like justice kind of aspect to my like astrology chart, right? I'm a Libra rising, but then also my incarnation cross in human design is all about like fairness. And so when I say, you know, they all get the same, they all get, you know, same, but different sometimes. I like to offer things to everyone because it feels fair. So they can then decide if they want it or not, right? So if I have an herb that I'm like, oh, I really feel like somebody wants this. I'll offer it to everyone, even though I might have an idea like, oh, this is for Jazz, but I'll offer it to Ruby and Apollo. And then sometimes I'll find out, oh, Jazz actually didn't want it at all. It was actually, you know, one of the other two or somebody else at the farm, at the barn. Um, so that's my only caveat of like, well, everybody gets offered all of the things because there's, again, it comes back to fairness and it doesn't feel fair if they don't get it offered to them. So there's that. All right. Hopefully, this is like a fun kind of maybe start to a conversation around how much you may have been giving up decision-making power to external sources, right? Whether it be a supplement brand or it be a vet or a body worker or a trainer. And I think also it's a really great reminder for any of us who are in this kind of goes back to Torch's message, which was a previous message I highly recommend listening to. It was a few episodes ago. That is all about if you are someone who supports animals in some capacity, that you're doing it in a way that is uplifting to them, right? And so for the sake of this conversation, it likely wouldn't look like saying this, you have to do this, right? Or this is what, like, this is the product you need to do, or this is the exercise you need to do. And instead look at it from, okay, but what are those things providing, right? Okay, so the supplement's providing balanced metabolic system, right? And so it's like, okay, this is what this supplement it would this is what the supplement is meant to do. So it's meant to balance blood sugar, we'll say, right? So that's what we're looking for is balancing blood sugar. Okay. There's lots of different ways to get there, right? There's not one way to get there. So let's look at this aspect of it and then see what feels best for us to get there, right? But we need to understand because we aren't the vet, we aren't the body worker, we don't have the knowledge that they have, that it would be really great that we can give this like deeper understanding of saying, maybe like a supplement like this because it does XYZ, right? But then that can get hard because so many people are, reps for different brands. And so it's like, but I want to rep this brand because then I get a commission, all the things. And so it's just, there's so many layers. There's always so many layers. So, right, it would be like that. For an exercise, it'd be like, okay, but what we're trying to do is loosen up the hamstrings, right? Okay. Well, there's lots of different ways we can get there too, right? It's not just one exercise. So then let's look at all the different ways that we can get there and see which one feels best to all of us, right? So that is really the message here is how can we start to trust ourselves even deeper, right? And even the way that we get to that, to like how we trust ourselves deeper can look a million different ways, right? I, of course, would say human design is like my favorite way of getting there because it's the tool that has spoken the most to me and laid the best foundation for me to like start to see my life in a different way. But it's not the only way. It is a way. And so it's all about what feels best for you, what resonates best for you to get to that point. And then how do you, if you're not already connected to your animal, to be able to have that interaction of, okay, how do I put this, whatever the thing is, into their energy field to like get a feel of what they want, right? Like with Ranger and the surgery, like how do you feel about that, right? It can be a whole conversation, or it can be, how does this supplement? I do this all the time with the horses. How does this supplement feel? Okay, that feels kind of like whatever. How does this supplement feel? Well, that feels like unhelpful, but not like in a terrible way, just like unhelpful. But like this feels really good. So like let's try this. And then we'll see how it goes. And then we can just like go from there. I think I've made my point. All right. I hope this was helpful. I'm sending you all so much love. And if you have any questions, I will have my email in the show notes. And otherwise, I will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.